Hi everyone, welcome back to another Digital with Akash course. It's the penultimate one, but a very important one. So today it's all about paid search, but more specifically, we'll be kind of going into the depths of pay-per-click, PPC. So hopefully this will be a very exciting course for those who know a bit about PPC, but want to know a bit more. And also be very useful for any size businesses that have yet to even tap into PPC properly, because I'll tell you what, it's the greatest driver of revenue today if done well. So it's a very important course for sure. So just as a reminder, the last courses are now complete and are all available on YouTube to watch. And next week, the last course is all about Google Analytics. So definitely you don't want to miss that one. But yes, the last course of email marketing is live on YouTube. If you've missed it or just want a refresher, please do check it out. But today it's all about paid search, or PPC. But first, what is paid search? Well, paid search marketing is basically known in a variety of different ways by different industry and different marketing individuals. Some call it SEM, search engine marketing. Some call it PPC, like how I would normally call it. Some call it search engine advertising, sponsored listing, the list goes on. But in a nutshell, it's the opportunity to advertise within the sponsored listings of a search engine or partner site. So search engines such as Google, Bing, and you basically pay either, and most commonly when an ad is clicked, and that's known for pay per click, pretty self-explanatory, you pay for the click. But less commonly, but also can be known for as CPM, which is the cost per mil, which is the cost per 1,000 impressions, for example. And then even so, it can even be a bit more older, but before it used to be, especially when you do pay per call. So when someone gets a lead call, that's your salon, you can pay for a call as well. So it depends on your type of business, but usually PPC is the way forward. And when it comes in terms of what kind of platforms can you do PPC on, it's quite broad. You can pay per click on Facebook ads, Instagram ads, social ads. But the most commonly kind of associated marketing funnel or kind of platform when talking about paid search or PPC is usually Google AdWords. And this is your Google ads. So today we're going to be really focusing on Google. But of course, all of those practices and lessons can be easily kind of extrapolated and implemented on other PPC avenues, such as your Facebook ads, etc. So with Google, there's two types of ads that are commonly referred to, and you might have heard these terms, but not exactly sure what it means. So there's search ads on Google and there's display ads. So search ads is the thing that you most commonly see and you're probably the most familiar with. And this is the ad at the top of, when you type in something, let's say you're typing in hair oil, it's the ad that you see on the top of the Google search or on the side. It's normally a text, and it's usually the best way for people to see a product or service. And then display ads is more on the partner site. So we're talking on Google's partners like YouTube, for example, or there's even some news outlets like I think Wall Street Journal, etc., that they've got affiliates with. This is when you put some media on those sites, and often can involve a lot more visual. So maybe it's a banner, maybe it's a little static image, but it's more of a display, if you will. But so you have search ads, which is really on the search engines, and you've got display ads, which are displayed on other platforms that Google has affiliated itself with. So hopefully that makes sense. But let's talk really about search ads as a predominantly the main key paid search and most commonly used one. But how does it work? So really easily to explain the process in pretty much 3 steps. It works by a business setting and selecting specific keywords that they want to bid for. So let's think of it like a marketplace or like eBay. You want to bid for terms. So when someone's searching, let's say someone is searching hair oil, I want them to see Fable and Main's hair oil, my hair care brand's oil. But of course, hair oil is a very generic keyword where there'll also be other brands such as Olaplex, Moroccan oil that also want to be appearing when you're typing in a generic consumer types in hair oil. So then you're bidding, right? You're bidding to see who gets it, sort of like an auction. Usually when you're bidding for something very specific or your own brand name like Fable and Main, the cost per click will be very low because not many people are bidding on it. So there's less competition. But we'll go really into detail on that. But that's just a general overview that you set keywords that when people are searching onto their search engine, where will your ad come up and what will the relevancy be of that keyword to that ad. Then when someone searches, for example, they type in hair oil, your ad will appear. And then you only get charged once someone clicks on that ad. And that's CPC. So that's when someone has interacted, clicked on it, there's a click through, and then you are charged at that point. So from a keywords perspective, you normally can break it up into two forms. There's brand keywords and generic keywords. So usually at the very beginning, you want to be bidding for your brand keywords like Fable and Mane, Holy Roots hair oil, anything that's affiliated to your brand and the product that you want to do an ad on. But bear in mind that most people might say, yeah, but I already appear in my search engine organically. Why do I got to do an ad on top of that? Well, usually what you see is very different to other people's browsers in other people's countries. So you might see your ranking at number 5, but someone else might be number 3. So ads usually can guarantee that first position. And that's where you want to be, at the very top of Google. And it's not necessarily, and we'll go through examples later, something that is counterintuitive or counterproductive. It's more complementary to your organic SEO. So you do want to be bidding for your brand keywords. And anyway, they will have the lowest CPC because very rarely do other people bid for your own brand keywords. Unless it's some very sly competitor that's trying to bid on your keywords, they usually wouldn't spend money there. So usually I would say you're safe to do brand keywords at the very beginning. And then later, when you have more budget and you have more time and more, experience, you want to start bidding on generic keywords. So for example, for our hair oil, I want when someone types in Ayurvedic hair oil, can my Fable and Mane kind of ad come up? Or when they type in vegan hair care. The more generic you go, the more expensive and the more bidding it will be. So think of it as an auction house. And this is pretty much a very first step approach to it, but it hopefully will put a good picture and understanding what paid search is all about, especially when it comes to PPC. So in a PPC campaign, to reiterate, you pay Google however much you wish. So you set a limit as well. So you say, I don't want to go over $1 for a click. And then Google will either show you or not. If they show you, that means no one's really bidding. If they don't show you, that means, look, someone's bidding way above you. You're not going to be seen, but it doesn't matter. You're not going to be charged. And when someone clicks, you pay. It's pretty simple as that. So here's a perfect example of my hair care brand that I've done an ad on top of the organic SEO. So we've got very good SEO presence organically, where we're number 1 when someone types in Fable and Mane. But I've still done an ad, and I've even made it more special by having more keywords, maybe like a join the tribe, like sign up to the newsletter. Maybe it's about a specific offer that month. You can be really reactive with your ads because they're temporary. But often you see people liking to click on your first ad. So I see a lot of click-throughs on my ad more than my organic, which is a bit annoying sometimes because you don't want people to necessarily click on your ad because then you're paying, when if they just go to the second link, they're not going to necessarily pay. It's organic. But you have to understand every browser is different. Every person sees something differently. So this way you're guaranteeing that first place no matter what. And if you watch my SEO course, you'll understand how it can change so quickly. You need to make sure that your SEO is also on track. So I would definitely advise anyone who hasn't watched my SEO course, do please watch that, because then you'll understand how paid search can be very, very kind of intertwined with your SEO practices. And how you create Google Ads. Again, this is not what we're going to be discussing predominantly today, but I do advise you all, if you are interested to start, you set up a Google Ad Manager, and then there'll be a lot of tutorials on there, and it's very self-explanatory. But you can just see here, I can set brand terms, brand keywords in specific countries, on specific terms. I can even do some shopping ads. We'll go through that a bit later. But basically, you do it all within the Google Ad Console, and it's very, very easy and very, very quite fun as well to kind of play around and try all different things. So now let's go through some key definitions, because what we'll be discussing today, we'll be using a lot of abbreviations. I just want to make sure that you all know all the terms before you're wondering, what does SERP mean, for example? So search engines results page, which is SERP, we'll go through that. We'll go through cost per click, cost per mil, product listing ads, pay-per-click, and search engine marketing. So SERP, which is often referred to by marketers, is basically the pages that displayed by search engine in response to a query by a user. So if I type in Fable and Mane, the SERP is pretty much this. That's the SERP. So you're thinking about that search engine page. It only really comes up, a SERP is only implemented when someone's done a keyword search. So when I refer to SERP, think of it as that page. Then you have a cost per click or cost per mil. Mil means 1,000. So cost per click is basically, as we said quite a few times, when you as an advertiser appear on the SERP, and then you pay basically when a user clicks on the ad. And the cost per mil is basically, ignore that, I didn't correct that, but a cost per mil is basically when you pay for 1,000 kind of views or impressions. And then you have product listing ads, which is basically Google Shopping ads, another way people call them, or PLA. This is like you can see here from the chocolate fountain. Here are all the product listing ads. So I also have done that for Fable and Main in specific countries. And it's something, again, people really like to do. But that's usually at the bottom of the funnel when someone knows that they want to purchase, then they end up clicking on your shopping ads. So it's another strategy, but it's something that I would definitely recommend people to do as well, depending on your product type. Of course, if you're offering a service, you wouldn't be doing product listing ads. It's really for a product. And then paid search, or PPC, pay-per-click, is basically the most widespread paid search model and is often referred to as paid search in general. But PPC, paid search, it depends on what marketer you're talking to. So if someone says paid search, they're usually just talking about PPC. And then you have a search engine marketing, SEM, and this is basically often used to refer purely to paid search advertising, but can encompass SEO. So when I think about my SEO and paid search together, I'm talking about my search engine marketing. The organic is the SEO, the paid is the PPC. So now let's go through some industry statistics to understand why PPC is so important today and why you should all be using it within your brands or marketing strategy. So over 7 million advertisers have invested a total of $10 billion for PPC ads from 2017 to 2018. And 62% of marketers have planned to increase their PPC budgets year on year. So it's something that's definitely showing value to many marketing individuals today, and it's increasing year on year. And nearly 80% of marketers say PPC is very beneficial for their business. And I as well, I'll be one of them that say PPC is definitely one of the biggest revenue drivers for my brands today. So when it comes to kind of specific numbers, the average is usually when you spend $1 on Google Ads, you get $2 back in income. So think of that as sort of your benchmark, not necessarily the most enticing or even lucrative model, but it does work. It does usually end up in a profit. And your average click-through rate, which is basically the click, we said it in another lecture before, is basically the number of the people that click through to the next website in a percentage. On search, which again, as I said, is kind of the text on the right or the top of a Google SERP, that's an average of 3%, the click-through rate. And then display, which is on like a YouTube or wherever, that little like ad on the side, that's 0.5%. So if you're getting these numbers from your Google console where you get your analytics and you're looking at these reportings, please think of this as your kind of benchmark. You want to be usually for search 4 to 6% is where I would say is your minimum. Don't go below 4. So why is PPC important? Let's just go now into the reality. Like, this is all great, but why are we doing it? Well, basically, the biggest benefit of paid search is it guarantees you to be at the top of your search engine page. No matter what happens with the SEO, it guarantees you. So for me, as someone who is quite strong in SEO, I still want to make sure that there is some user out there that can see it, number one, because it can change in a minute. It can change tomorrow. So I guarantee that by having my PPC at the very top. But also when it comes to mobile, you want to really take up that limited space. So by having two, a paid ad and an organic search, when someone types in Fable and Main, they're only going to be clicking on fableandmain.com. So I'm basically taking up that real estate. And that's something that most people don't think about, but is also quite a smart tactic, especially if you are someone who has a brand that's on 100 retailers that everyone's bidding. Try to make as much real estate for your .com if that's part of your strategy to grow your own D2C business. So how do you get on top quick? Well, if you don't have enough investment, PPC is definitely the fastest way to get on top, because SEO can take time. And as I said in my last course, it's something that it's an always on, long-term marathon type of marketing technique. Whereas PPC, you can literally, if your SEO is inexistent, you don't have your site in the first couple of pages of Google, because, for example, your site wasn't being crawled, or you just are a new site that's launched, you can do PPC and guarantee within an hour that your ad is pretty much live. So it's a very quick approach, and it usually is very, very, effective in getting kind of short-term success in sales. So what does PPC success looks like? A lot of marketing individual will use this funnel approach. Really, when you think about this funnel, you're really thinking about the top being awareness and the bottom being conversion. So you think about it as you will get a lot of people seeing the top, but not necessarily a lot of click-throughs, not necessarily a lot of conversions, and quite a high bounce rate. That's okay, because as you go further down, you have different strategies and different ads. So video, display, and that's why, remember I said here, your average click-through rate is 0.5 for display, but for search, it's a lot higher, is because your display is usually at the top of the funnel, whereas search is usually from the top to bottom. It can be really at any point on the funnel line. You then want to make sure your shopping, which is the, as I said before, the product listing ads, that's more that direct, the kind of conversion where people know that they want to buy and they click on it. Because when you click on a product listing ad or a soft shopping ad, you're going to buy it. It's pretty much like, I've seen that, I want to buy it. I've seen the lowest price out of the 5 different, I can show you right now just to kind of give you an example, but you can see here, the one that's got the lowest price is probably the home chocolate in Amazon. You're just going to click on the second one as opposed to the first one, which is £2,800. So this is why it's very important to think about this funnel always. And then you have remarketing, and remarketing is very, very, very important. What remarketing is, just to show you really quickly, is when you're basically targeting the customers or potential customers that have once interacted with something on your ads or your Google search or your display in the past. And often people that you've retargeted in ads are 70% more likely to convert on your website if you do remarketing. So that's very important to think about it when you're doing your audience segmentation and your audience targeting. How are you doing your remarketing strategy too? Not just new customers, but people that have seen ads before. And that's why it's very important to have a pixel on your website. So you're really capturing anyone who's visited your website through all your ads that you've done in the past, whether it's social or Google or anything. And it's very also important to think about when you're doing your remarketing, that you also are thinking about your split between new and old customers, because there is a sense of the old customers, you can entice them with another ad and then remind them to purchase, but you also want to have enough budget to kind of get new customer acquisition. So that's something that you've got to decide based on your model, and it's all about A/B testing and trying different ways. But when you think about the most popular ad types today, text ads, search ads are the most. And that's why I said predominantly today we're going to be focusing on search. And then you have your remarketing, which is no surprise because, as I said, 70% of people end up usually converting after remarketing ad. Then you have your mobile, social, shopping, display a bit further on, that 0.5%, programmatic, which is basically a reactive type of ad. And then you have your native ad. So now let's go through the pros and the cons of PPC. So the advantages of PPC, pay-per-click, is offers, as I said, a very quick entry. You can pretty much guarantee, within an hour to get an ad live, as long as you've reached, the minimum requirements. It does contribute greatly to your business goals. It's really a strong converter, as opposed to a lot of other ads are mainly for awareness. PPC really helps you get that conversion through that bottom of the funnel approach. Mainly through search ads, not really display ads. You also have very easy to measure and trackable results that can help you implement better PPC ads in the future. It works well with other marketing channels, for example, SEO. It's a very complementary marketing technique. You have a lot of targeting options. So, when you're doing your Google ads and you're doing your brand terms and your keywords, you also can then do your audience segmenting. So who are you targeting? What age range? Who do you want to see? You've already done those search terms. So like Fable and Mane, Ayurvedic hair oil, but I also want to go a step further and make sure I only target people who are between 20 and 55 years old, women living in USA. So you can be really granular, and that's why it offers a lot of really incredible targeting options. And you want to make sure you're being very targeting, because the more targeted you're doing, the less you're paying for just, I would say, like bogus clicks. You don't want to basically have an ad segmentation in a big volume country where you're getting 10,000 clicks and you're paying $10,000, but then no one's buying, everyone's just leaving. You want to make sure, and that's the beauty of PPC, where you're only paying for the click, that you're seeing it in front of the right people. And that's why targeting is so important with paid search. So, so, so important. You also get a huge wealth of useful data, and that's why using your analytics and reporting is super important. And most importantly, you're in control. You decide how your PPC works, and you can pause and you can stop at any time whenever it doesn't work or whenever you're paying too much money. But when it comes to disadvantages, that does involve a lot of time. It does take a lot of skills that are required to make sure you're doing your PPC effectively and you're doing the right targeting. Costs can add up quickly because, you're paying for clicks. So let's say something happens out of control and Kylie Jenner has posted about you and said, look, everyone go Google Fable and Main. And then everyone Googles it and clicks on my ad without realizing I didn't want that audience. That's when your targeting becomes very important. So you're avoiding people that you didn't want. But usually you're paying for the click. So if you have 10,000 clicks, you're paying for 10,000 clicks. So you've got to make sure you monitor it, but you also have capping. So in your Google search ad, in your ad manager, you can also cap the amount of spend that you want to do on a daily or weekly basis. Again, all of that will only become more and more clear when you start playing with the Google Ad Manager console. I didn't want to go through a whole deep dive into that because it's a whole couple of hours to kind of go through, but it's pretty self-explanatory when you start playing around with it. And like any other Facebook ad, etc., it's very self-intuitive. You can put your limit on how much you want to pay, limit on your audience. You can be very targeted, but the more and more you do that, the less likely your ad is going to be shown. So you've got to think about that opportunity cost. Also, yeah, sales are not guaranteed, but again, like any ads, it's never really guaranteed. Your ads do disappear when campaign ends. So unlike SEO, all the hard work is just for that short term of when you're putting the ad. And it's very competitive, especially with keywords where a lot of people will be bidding, and that's when things can get ridiculously expensive. So if you're, for example, typing in, you're bidding against skincare, the word skincare, you can be paying a lot of dollars just to get one person to click on it because everyone is bidding on it. But it's also important to know some PPC fails and some common mistakes that people make. Not enough activity, so not enough of optimization, editing the ads. People usually make the mistake of just doing an ad and leaving it for a couple of months. You should really be editing it, monitoring it, and changing it up every 30 days. Make your ad reactive as if it's a new customer or the same customer doesn't want to see the same ad, right? So be very reactive as if it's like a social media feed, it's a way you're representing the brand through your ad. So that's very important. So minimum every 30 days, update your PPC. And that's going to force you to look at your metrics and your analytics to make sure that you're really being optimized as possible. And avoid any negative keywords. People forget that they use these words that, they might not realize how it gets searched because they don't think of it as an individual. So if I'm doing an ad and let's say I say, your hair will never look better, never is sort of a negative keyword. So Google will spot it and think of it as a negative word. So your quality score will go lower, which we'll talk about in a bit. And then your CPC will get higher. So really think about your wording and how you're thinking of it as a very granular level. Think of you as like a robot. And when you think of the word, there is, as I said before, Google has implemented a lot of new technology, AI, to make machine learning and make your words be understood a bit more in a human way. But of course, it's still a search engine and people will search in, single words or fragmented words. So using negative words like never and not and no, I would avoid. And just, there's always other ways to phrase a sentence. So think about that. So now we'll talk about a bit more in detail on ad rank. So ad ranks is a bit more for, I guess you could say, the advanced digital people on the course, but I really would encourage everyone to listen and learn about it because I think it's very important. And it's not something you might need to use or know, but the logical question most people might have is, yeah, but I'm bidding for something, I'm putting some keywords, and then Google tells me it costed me 30 cents or $1.30. Why? Like, how did Google make up that number? Like, what was the rationale? So this is all to do with your ad ranking and how they've calculated your CPC. So you have your ad ranking like so. So you set a max CPC bid. So you say, I don't want to pay more than $1 for any ad, or normally you say $2 or $3. And then Google will advise you when you're making your ad to say, look, that's a very low CPC. very low CPC, we advise you to do a minimum of 3 to 4, like any other social ad platform like Facebook, etc. They always tell you how many people they recommend and how many people they think that you're going to reach with your budget. So then that always forces you to increase it or not. So this is where your CPC bid is. And then you have your quality score, and then that equals an ad rank. So what a quality score is basically Google's way of rating the quality and relevancy of both your keywords and your PPC ads, which depends on many factors like your click-through rates, your historical click-through rates, your performance, and most importantly, performance meaning how many people are interacting, how many people are kind of staying on your website, and then your landing page relevance. So if you're doing an ad based on the Holy Root hair oil, when you click on it, does it go to just the .com or does it go to the hair oil page? So those are where the relevancy will increase. So you don't want to be doing something, for example, where you say, this is an ad all about our charity, and then you click on it and it goes to the product page to sell. That's not relevant. People will be leaving quickly and Google will fault you for that. So making sure you're thinking about these things to increase your quality score, but I've got one slide in a bit that will help you kind of think about all those different techniques that you can do. So once you've got your ad rank, not you, but once Google has figured out your ad rank, it's something like this. So for example, you can see here, it's a great example where you have PPC agency and XYZ brand. So the PPC agency has said, I'm going to have a max cost per click of $4. I don't want to spend more than $4 for a click. Never, not going to happen. Whereas the XYZ brand is like, you know what? I can spend $5. That's no problem. But the quality score of the brand is 3 by Google, because maybe their ad is got some negative keywords, or maybe their relevancy is not good enough, or maybe they've done ads in the past with a very low click-through rate. So they've been kind of put in a quality score that's lower at a 3. Whereas the PPC agency is slightly higher by 2 points at 5. So what happens is, as I said, by the formula, you have your max CPC bid times your quality score. So you have your PPC agency is at 20, and your XYZ brand is at 15. So even though that person has said that I want to pay more, Google still doesn't dictate it by whoever wants to pay more. They make sure they do it fairly by kind of countering the quality score. And this is a great thing that Google's done, because it avoids some silly agency who's got a lot of money just to kind of ruin the whole PPC world. We don't want to have, it's like that, you don't want to have like a dictator on PPC. You want it to be fair based on the merit of the ad and the relevancy. So that's why quality score is super important. And I'm very glad Google's done that, because it also makes you, if you don't have a lot of budget, but you have a lot of relevancy and a high quality score, it makes you basically pay way less in the future. Think of it like insurance, right? Like the more you bring, you end up racking up your insurance, the more expensive it gets in the future. It's basically the same as, this kind of model. But how do they actually then calculate the CPC? Because I've understood my ad rank here. Now, what's my CPC? So the ad rank is basically done. The CPC is basically done by Google noticing the ad rank below you when they're doing their positioning, dividing it by your quality score, and then they plus a cent. Don't ask why. This is a formula. But this is sort of how they calculate it. And so, of course, as you can see here, the higher your quality score, the less you'll pay, because the more you're dividing the number by. So you want to get a very high quality score. And here is a perfect example showing this. So for example, you want to have a high ad rank. So for me, for example, the ad rank below me is 20. My quality score is 8, and I plus 0.01. So my CPC will be 2.51. Whereas the fourth brand will have a very high CPC, nearly double of that, because their quality score is 4 times less. So think of this as a very interesting strategy of how you're thinking about your CPC. So you want to get a lower CPC by making sure you're doing everything properly. So that's a very unusual way to think about paid search, because usually you just think about, here's my ad, here's my budget, let's go. But you can always still optimize, and by optimizing and by ensuring that you're having a higher quality score year on year, you're going to lower your cost in the long run. And as you scale your business and you rely more on CPC or PPC, you will end up saving thousands, if not even hundreds and thousands of dollars by doing this technique. And that's why it's very important to think of it. And you want to get a higher ad rank. The higher the ad rank, the better. So here you can see 24, 20, 15, and 12. You're probably like, what the hell does that mean? So what ad rank means is Google, depending on certain keywords and search terms, they will put minimum ad rank threshold. So they would say only anyone above 20 ad rank will get their ads seen. It won't even be shown. So that's why sometimes you'll do a whole PPC, you make an amazing text, everything, and after 1 month, you pay nothing, but your ad was never shown by anyone. And that's because your quality score was probably very low, where it didn't meet the threshold of the ad rank. So that's basically where you're saying why the number is important to be higher. But again, this is something that's sort of like in the black box of Google. It's like kind of hidden, you know, it's not something you got to obsess about. There's not like a number like on Uber where you have your 5-star rating. It's not very like tangible, but it's something to think about when you're doing your PPC techniques of how you can increase your quality score, increase your ad rank to get a lower cost per click. So here are some tips to increase your quality score, or more so to think about to increase your quality score. So it's really about your keywords you're using, your URL, your ad. What is your click-through rate with all of that? How are you getting sure that your click-through rate is very strong? You want to get above 4, 5, 6%. If you go above 6, above 10, amazing. Then your relevancies. How relevant is your keyword based on the landing page you're leaving people to? Is it connected? And is it something that will ensure a very low bounce rate? Then also your historical CTR, like I said, with insurance, it keeps on adding up. So you want to make sure that every PPC campaign you do is as good as the last. Your geographical performance, so how well does your ad do in a specific geographical area? And that's why your targeting is very important to make sure you're targeting in the right areas. So if I'm targeting in, let's say, Kuala Lumpur, but I'm not selling in Kuala Lumpur, then why would I be targeting there? Just to get landing page visits? Not needed. So instead, making sure that your geographical presence is relevant to your business, that can end up increasing your click-throughs and your bounce rate to be low. Then your landing page. So how strong is your landing page? Does it have the same keywords that was mentioned on your landing page in the text? So if you're talking about Ayurvedic hair oil, when you go on my landing page, does Ayurvedic hair oil appear in the text? That's very important. And then your device performance. How well does your ad or your landing page work on mobile, on tablet? And that's very important to think about how you kind of make the campaign. So your headline, your description, your display URL, all of that is very important. And here are some examples of, some minimum requirements of characters, some maximum requirements of characters that you should follow to make a very successful Google ad campaign. But again, when you go on your Google Ad Manager, it's all very self-explanatory. They will advise you on all of this and they'll tell you what they recommend. So really do listen to that, because if they're telling you to recommend something, they're going to judge you later, and then that will help your CPC be as low as possible in the future. So what is the best PPC tool? Now you've heard all of this and you're like, look, I want to hire someone. There are so many companies out there that do PPC for you. My recommendation, and I'm telling you as this someone who owns an agency and does PPC for people, my best recommendation is you are the best tool. You should really try to just get as good as possible at PPC for your brand. It can be and will be the most revenue driving kind of technique or funnel for your business. So if you're not putting a lot of effort in as a marketer, as a brand owner, as whoever, you really should, because it's something that does deserve your attention. And usually, you're paying for an agency or you're paying to a third party. They're not going to be, again, like I said with SEO in my last course, they're not going to be so reactive to make sure you got a good quality score, because they're thinking short term. They're just thinking, how can they make sure that they get the best commission. So they want to also make you spend more, because then they get some commission from that. All they'll pay for you, they'll charge you a monthly fee, whatever it is. But the point is they don't have your interest really at heart unless they're a very long-term partner with you for many years to come. So that's why I would say, they might do some black hat techniques that end up sort of making your quality score lower and lower and lower. So you need to be on it, you need to be checking on it. And that's why I always recommend you are the best tool. And also, if you're really outsourcing it to someone, you're going to have some extra costs incurred, and that's going to increase your eventual CPC. And as I said before, it's not the most profitable ad revenue kind of in funnel, because it's quite expensive. You are paying quite a lot, sometimes $3 for an ad, $2 for an ad. So yes, it can convert quite quickly, but you want to reduce the cost as much as possible. So don't add to that if you can avoid to. And that's why I always say it's very important to keep on tracking. So then you can really be on top of everything, and really try to test as many campaigns as possible, because then that's going to help you get better. And ways you can track, will be within the Google Search Ads Manager, but also in Google Analytics. And this is just an example of a brand, that shows, this is by revenue, that paid search is the highest revenue driver for the business than any other, than organic search, than direct, then referral, social, email, display. So display is at the very bottom, because I don't really do display, but it just shows that that's what really works. So we'll go through Google Analytics in super detail next week, but that's why I personally think paid search is the most important. And the last thing, to go through is, does paid result in less trust? The answer is, it could. Absolutely. There's always an argument that, anything paid or like in your face, an ad, is a bit inauthentic. But generally speaking, this is quite to my fascination when I was researching this, that around 50% of adults couldn't tell the difference between a sponsored ad and a paid ad. Like, they just saw it as like the first thing. They didn't even see the ad, they just click on it. So a lot of people don't even know it's an ad, number one, or they're so used to it that at the end of the day, if they're coming just to convert, they just click on it. So I wouldn't think too much about the trust, because whether it does or not, the results speak for itself. When you look at this, it does drive the most revenue, so clearly it does work. But if you are looking for alternatives and you don't have the budget to start, or you don't have the willpower or the team, really think about more of your pay to play. Those techniques that are free, but will require a bit more time, but not budget. For example, SEO. SEO, getting your position to number one, can caveat that need of having a PPC on number one place. So, your SEO is very important, your social media campaigns, your word of mouth, all that other techniques is so important. But for me, I would always recommend doing this alongside everything. But you can spend very little. You can spend like even $10 a month. It doesn't matter, because you're only paying for the clicks. But get in the habit of increasing your quality score and increasing your knowledge on paid search. So we'll go through some Q&A, some questions that I've asked on my audience on Instagram before. And then if we have time, we'll go through some questions from this live stream. So the first question is PPC really helpful for conversions or just brand awareness? Definitely, as I showed you before in that funnel, it can do both. It can do brand awareness, but it does really help, specifically when you're talking about search, it does really help from a conversion angle. And that's proven from history of brands having a lot of success in sales from paid search. So definitely not just brand awareness, both, if not even more for the conversions. Someone asked, what should I spend as a new business on PPC? Again, it's really up to you. I would monitor it week by week and add to the capped amount, increasing the limit each week at a time. So my recommendation would be really be mindful of the spend, monitor it, but start at an average of around $300 to $500 a month for a small business. Start there, and then you can go onwards. That's probably a good place to start. Should I bid on my brand terms? Absolutely. I think it's something very important to do, again, as I said before, and it doesn't often cost much. You can limit it. You might also want to bid on misspelling. It's something quite odd, but if your brand name is quite, let's say you have a company called Deliveroo. No, if you have a company, let's say Deliveroo, but let's say someone spells it without double O, just one O, Deliveroo. You might want to do an ad on that, so people then see it, because then it was searched wrong. So be quite creative with when you're doing your brand terms, but also think not just your brand name, but also your like product names or your ancillary names. There's a lot you can do, or even the brand founders. So maybe when someone types in Akash Mehta, my ad will come up. You can go quite into that. Someone asked, should I bid on a lot of keywords or a few keywords? So I would recommend bidding on starting very small. Start with your brand terms and if you can, a few generic keywords, and build it over time. Don't jump into generic keywords. You're going to fly out of budget in no time, or just eat out of the budget. So really be small, be tactical, and methodical with it. Don't do something too generic where it's just going to cost you like $6 for one click. It's not worth it at this stage. If you're bigger and you have a bigger company, then you can work directly with Google, and then they'll have an account manager, and then they'll help you a lot. So, or you can go to an agency at that point and really have an expert. Like if you're a Dior, that's what you would do. You wouldn't do it really in-house. Do you recommend bidding on competitors? It really depends on your strategy. It's not a bad move. I would say it really depends on how many competitors. So I would say someone like Burger King and McDonald's, it could be quite smart for both of them to bid on each other's competitive terms, because they're quite direct competitors. But if it's like a skincare brand, there are so many skincare brands that are your competitors. So you can't be spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on just competitors. So I would say, again, at the last resort, if needed. But I think it's also a bit of a courtesy. Like in marketing, we should be quite courteous. And why are we driving up someone else's PPC when it's their brand term? So I would just personally say no. But again, it's up to your strategy and your goals. If I sell at a retailer, for example, like Sephora, who does PPC to? So if I sell it at a retailer who does PPC to, what should I do? If you sell at a retailer, I would always have a discussion with them because they might be bidding on your search terms. For example, I know in the industry, Cult Beauty is the biggest PPC player. They bid on everything. So when you type in Charlotte Tilbury, you'll see Cult Beauty #1 before Charlotte Tilbury, before Sephora, before anything. They probably have like the biggest budget on PPC. So if I was going to launch in Cult Beauty, I would definitely have a negotiation with them beforehand and be like, look, I don't want you to bid on PPC terms. I want to be there as well. Or can we have some month-on-month focuses? Can we pause them at different times? Because we're both having this, we're both wanting to get sales. I want to get sales on your retail account. You want to get sales on my brand so I can increase the brand marketing spend and brand awareness. So let's work together, because you don't want to be necessarily competing on your brand term, but you want to be competing on generic keywords with other competitors. Can I just focus on SEO instead of engaging with paid search? You can indeed. If you have very little budget, you can. But again, best practice, do a bit of PPC, even if it's very small. Even if it's $50 a month, I would recommend you do a bit of PPC. For social media ads, should we cap our CPC, our cost per click? Yeah, I would always recommend capping your CPC at a reasonable level, because there's always a risk. You go to sleep for a couple of hours a day, you wake up and you don't want to be slammed with a big bill because you didn't do any capping. So be sensible with the amount. Don't make it too low where you're not going to get any results. But yeah, have a sensible cap, maybe like $5, $4. Is there such a thing as too little budget on paid search? No. Again, it's really, you can even do one click and it can be a success, because if you did one click, one ad, and you got $100 in sale, it's a success. It didn't cost you anything, so apart from your time. So definitely no such thing as too little budget on paid search. But the only thing that is true is if you put too little like budget on your CPC, on your like capping, and then you don't even get the ad seen by anything, then that's obviously too little budget. So you want to have enough budget to make sure that your ads are seen. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. So I guess I say yes and no. How do you track paid search? I think, yeah, going back to my last thing in a few slides before, it's really about using your reporting within the Google Ad Manager, but also or in any other, if you're using Facebook and your Facebook Ad Manager, wherever you are, but also Google Analytics. So that's where it's very important in all your links to be using trackable links, UTM links, but we'll go through all of that next week. So that's actually a perfect transition to asking and opening the floor to questions. We have a few questions, not many, which is good because we don't have too much time. Should we click on the search ads? Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know if that's asking from what perspective, but if you are making ads, do not click on your ads because you're going to be charging yourself. So that's very important. I get in this panic attack when I'm like always on Fable and Main. I'm searching it to see if there's any new, if my SEO is improved or if there's any new publications. You want to make sure that you don't click on your ad because you're going to pay for it. And you should also tell your friends, your colleagues to not click on your ad because you're going to pay for it. Tracy asks, what do you do to prevent click fraud? It's quite tricky. I think that's when your targeting comes really into play. So usually click fraud will happen from clickbait farms, which can be in, some specific countries or, might be of a specific, not the best targeting. So that's why I would always say making sure your targeting is very strong. So you're avoiding maybe those countries or those potential audiences. Um, you usually don't see that happening, but it can. That's why it's really important to regularly monitor. And if you see something a bit abnormal, you can pause the ad or change something and react to that. I also would say it's quite important to, for me, when you're thinking about like who's clicking on your ads, try to, well, my recommendation would be like try to be lenient to the fact that a click is a click. So if you can focus on more your retargeting, so once people have clicked and they've gone on your site, you want to eventually move your strategy to be more and more focusing on your remarketing, your retargeting, once you've done a lot of ads. So that can avoid your click fraud, because they're actual people that have been on your website before that you trust, that have got maybe good average session on your site. You can go really granular in this, and that's where you want to focus. So there are techniques that you can do to avoid fraud. But yeah, I would be really monitoring it and just kind of being aware of it. But usually it's not really an issue, because there's nothing really for them to gain by clicking on it 100 times, unless it's like a competitor. It could be cheeky for like a Chanel to like basically like click on all the Dior's ads and hire someone, but don't know. No one should do that. What if a rival is trying to bid on the most relevant keywords to your brand, to redirect your potential traffic? Yeah, that does happen. And that's why I kind of say this idea of like, I don't want to go too much into it, because I'm really trying to promote like sustainable digital marketing, conscious digital marketing. That's what my agency is all about. So I always try to say like, have that respect for other brands, and they're also struggling in these times, and it's expensive to do all these marketing techniques. So unless it's really part of your your marketing strategy to eventually gain or share those customers, then yes, you could kind of do some kind of redirecting and targeting those brand keywords of other people or relevant keywords. But that's when your quality score comes into play. So if your quality score is super good, no matter what your competitors do, doesn't matter. Because in the day, when they're bidding on something that's your keyword and not so relevant to them, as I said before, the relevancy index goes down for them. So their quality score is going to hinder. Their long-term, even if they do something proper, their still quality score is lower. So they're not helping their long-term business. So if they do that, it's bad on them. So you as an individual should not do that, not only from being courteous as a sustainable approach to marketing to other brands, but also to not ruin your quality score, because you might not have relevancy in Ayurvedic. Like, why bid on Ayurvedic if you're not Ayurvedic? And then Google will penalize you for that. So any other questions? I think today we have like way less questions, because hopefully I've explained a lot of it, and be like, paid search isn't so like in depth. It's quite surface level simple. It's just a matter of kind of getting more into it. And also it really depends on your brand, like if you're fortunate enough, like I'll be honest that like with Fable and Min, we're very lucky from a paid search point of view, because we have a unique name. We have, within the hair care category, we're really focusing on hair oil, which is not as popular as say shampoo, conditioner. We have Ayurvedic. We have specific ingredients that are not often used in hair care. So we're quite lucky with paid search. Whereas let's say I was a skincare brand focusing on cleansing and moisturizing, and it had the active ingredient of vitamin C and oranges. Vitamin C is always there's so many vitamin C serums, there's so many moisturizers, there's so many skincare brands. So you kind of lack what you could do in PPC. So it does depend on your brand and your service and what you're offering, to really implement how far you want to go in PPC. But that will just be something that you'll get more and more in tune with as you go on. So some people, before we kind of close off, people are asking for certificates. I will let you know soon. I will work on that. But yeah, leave that to me. Very soon, I will let you know. but it should be possible. So on that note, I think we've run out of questions. So I will see you guys hopefully next week on the 31st of July for the last course on Google Analytics. And this will be uploaded on YouTube. And I wish you all an incredible weekend, a great week ahead, and hopefully you enjoyed this course and learned something new. So I will see you all next week. And yeah, any other questions? I know some people are asking more questions. Feel free to email me or DM me on Instagram, and I'll be happy to help as much as I can. So see you all next week, and all the best. Much love.